Does everybody remember how we've been talking about economics? Remember, economics is learning about and understanding the economy. The economy is the system of how we use money. Remember that? So today you're going to learn about something that's super important in our country's economy, and that is supply and demand. You've probably heard those words before. Supply is how much of something there is, and demand is how much people want it. So let me give you an example from my life. My 12-year-old daughter enjoys riding her bike. In the summer of 2019, she got too big for her little kid-sized bike. So I was going to get her a new, bigger bike. But by the time we realized this, it was getting closer to wintertime, and it seemed kind of silly to buy her a new bike when it was going to be really cold and she wouldn't be using it much. So I was like, I'll just wait till the spring or summer. Well, then COVID happened and schools closed and everybody started staying at home with their families. I was ready to buy her a bike and she really needed one at that point. She was way too big for her other one. But suddenly, there were no bikes to buy. Literally none. It was crazy. I looked on the internet. I went in lots of different stores. I looked on different store websites. I called stores. There were very few choices in bikes. And the choices that there were extremely expensive. I kept looking, but my daughter never got a bike that summer at all. Finally, in the fall, just this past fall, I found her one that wasn't a ridiculous price. What on earth happened? I'll tell you what happened. Supply and demand happened in our country's economy. When COVID began to spread and people couldn't travel or go to school or go very many places, a lot of people started buying things they could do at home, such as riding bikes. A lot of people who enjoyed playing sports couldn't play on sports teams anymore, so they chose other ways to be outside or exercise, like riding bikes. So the companies that make and sell bikes, they had no idea bikes were going to become so extra popular last spring and summer, so they hadn't made enough extras. The supply and demand balance was really unequal. The demand was high. A lot of people really wanted bikes, but the supply was low. They didn't have enough for everyone. A few companies knew this, and so they raised the prices on the bikes they did have. They knew people were so excited to buy a bike that they would be willing to spend extra. So the companies made more money that way. I had to make a choice. I either had to wait several months to buy the bike or search really hard and then pay quite a bit more than usual for a bike. Let me give you a hint. She didn't get a bike at the really expensive price. She waited. Now schools are mostly open and people are busy with other things again, so bikes aren't quite as popular as they were. This means the demand has gone down, and so companies aren't running out of bikes anymore. They've had to lower their prices again to make people still want to buy them. And the supply is back up. If you go in a store now that sells bikes, they usually have some. On the other hand, COVID totally changed supply and demand of something different, like gasoline, and it changed it in a different way. Since people couldn't go to school and work like usual, and a lot of people were scared to travel or go places for fun that they used to do, they weren't going places very much. So their cars don't get used very much, and so they don't use as much gas and don't need to go to the gas station to fill up with gas very often. Gas stations still had lots of gasoline, and they wanted to sell it to make money. But people weren't buying it very much. People didn't need gas, so the demand was very low. But gas stations still had a lot of gas, so the supply was high. So that supply and demand balance was not very equal. Gas stations started decreasing the price of gasoline as a way to encourage people to buy more of it. Most of the time, supply and demand are pretty balanced. Businesses figure out about how many items of something people usually buy in a certain amount of time, so they make just the right amount of that item, and then they sell it for just the right price to get people to buy that item, and then the company makes money. Business owners also choose where they're going to have their stores and the price of their items based on supply and demand, and also other competition. Think about this. If bikes are really popular and Walmart keeps selling a lot of them, another person who knows how to make bikes might notice this and decide to build a bike store right next to Walmart. They would probably make a lot of money because so many people want to buy bikes when the demand is high, right? But if Walmart gets more bikes and they start selling them cheaper, people are going to go there instead. So the other store might not make enough money. They'll need to find another way to get people to buy their bikes. Either make the bikes cheaper or make them somehow special in a different way, or maybe put the store in a place that isn't near another store that sells bikes. These are decisions that business owners make all the time, and that's part of what's called a market economy. Okay, a market economy, and it's really based on supply and demand. That means that supply and demand from what people demand or want and how much of something they have, that the supply and demand is what causes businesses to make their decisions. I hope that makes sense. Think about areas where you see supply and demand at work. What are some of the things you notice in stores that a lot of people really want? What's really popular? What are people needing a lot of? What are things that stores don't have enough of? They can't keep up. Sometimes you have to go on even a waiting list for certain things. All of that has to do with supply and demand, which is part of what makes our market or our economy in our country work. All right, that's it for today.